If you were not here last week, we actually started what is the 1T4X diet. And if you did not get a bracelet, they're actually out there in the information center. You can go out there. There's kids ones, there's adult ones. And we just talked about last week what the 1T4X diet workout is. And we have these as kind of a reminder for ourselves as we go out their week. So if you miss those, grab those after service. They're out there. But what we're doing is this. We are starting a 6-week a process of embarking on a spiritual workout or diet together to kind of add to our spiritual lives and kind of renew us spiritually. And 1 Timothy 4, verses 7 through 9, Paul says this, and this is where you get the 1T4X. 1 Timothy chapter 4, X is verses 7 through 9. So how you get that is, here's what Paul writes. He says, train yourselves to be godly. Physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better, promising benefits in this life and the life to come. This is a trustworthy saying that everyone should accept. So Paul says it's great to have physical training, to pour your time into that, but it's much better to pour your life into spiritual training, getting yourself spiritually healthy. Last week, and Jim, don't worry about those. We're going to get to those towards the end is where I'll see if anyone needs any extra programs. Last week we talked about it's a safe assumption to assume most of us are spiritually out of shape. And I gave you some stats, and I wanted to kind of reread those to you about the Christian lifestyle in America today. Here's what we found. Only 23% of Christians read their Bible on a regular basis. That means 4 out of 7 days in a week, so less than a quarter. Only 47% of Christians attend church regularly. That's 3 out of 4 weeks in a typical month. Only 84% of Christians pray daily. Only 64% of Christians actually pray more than once a day. And 31% of Christians give 0 to the church. The average giving of the American Christian is 2.43% of their income. Now, when you realize you are spiritually out of shape, we talked about last week, you have 2 options. Option 1 is this. You make a change to your behavior. And you change things up of what has gotten you to the point you're at. Option 2 is you just continue on the same path that has kind of got you stuck in the rut that you're in and continue it on and continue to stay unhealthy and unfit spiritually and see where that path takes you. You have 2 options that you can make in life. What we are doing is this. We are working together to make a change in our lives. We are working together to lead to some spiritual renewal in our lives. And the reason for that is this. If you can get spiritually healthy, church, as individual Christians as well, if you can get spiritually healthy, these are things you will find. You will find peace in your life. True peace. You will find peace in your life. You will find true self-worth. Not the cheap stuff the world offers you that lasts for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or even a year. You will find true self-worth that can't be taken away by anything this world throws at you. You will find a clear way and purpose to live your life. It won't be a question of what you're supposed to be doing or how you're supposed to be living. God will clear that up very easily for you. You will find true contentment. You will find a way to be content in life, not always feeling like you got to get more. You will find contentment. And most of all, you will find this. When you get spiritually healthy, you will start to realize that God is active in your everyday life. He's just not a God who lives up there and we live down here. You will start to realize God is active and real, and He's alive, and He is interacting in your life on a daily basis. To put it frankly, getting spiritually healthy will change your life. I guarantee it. So, this morning, what we are doing is this. Last week, we just kind of illustrated the issue we had and that we need to start working out. This week, what we're doing is this. We're going to start planning our process going forward for the 1T4X workout and start putting some plans in place of how we do this workout, how we start to get spiritually healthy. Now, if you've ever done a diet, and I asked this last week, I'll ask you again, how many of you have done a diet? At some point in your life. Okay, that's almost everyone. If you've ever done a diet, you know there's a lot of diets out there that do what's called kind of a shock at the beginning of the diet, where they shock your unhealthy system to kind of reset it. And what you do is you remove a bunch of stuff out of your system, and it kind of resets your system in order to get healthy from that point. The one I am familiar with, because my wife has done this one, is the Atkins diet. Has anyone ever done the Atkins diet? Okay, there's a few. The Atkins diet, here's how it works. The first 2 weeks is you cut out all carbs. Okay? That is all pastas, potatoes, sugars, candies, everything that's a carb you cut out for the first 2 weeks. And from what I remember, you live on like bacon and lettuce. That's basically how it works, is you eat bacon and lettuce and eggs. You eat like high protein for the first 2 weeks, but all carbs go. Just so you know, I would die like into day 3. Because my entire diet, I think, is carbs. I live on pasta, potatoes, M&Ms, and M&Ms. That's what I live on. I would be dead with the Atkins diet in 3 days. But what that does is they do that because they say you kind of need to shock the system to reset it so you can start building something healthy. In a lot of ways, it's kind of called the cold turkey approach of things. You rip the Band-Aid off things. My family, we have a nasty habit. That's how my whole family has operated our whole lives, is you rip the bandage off things. For instance, I remember in 5th grade, we had, some of you have heard this story probably in the past, we had our garage and we had a tree close to the garage that we had a rope tied into, and it was like that plastic type rope, the yellow stuff, you know what I'm talking about? It's like, what is it, nylon? Is that what it's called? We had that, and we had some knots tied in it, and what we would do is if you got a stick, you could climb up on the garage, you could take a stick, and you could reach out over the edge of the garage and pull it to you, and then you could grab onto it, and then you could swing out, and you'd swing out on this limb, and then you'd drop like 5 feet to the ground when you let go. But you would swing, okay? I'm definitely scared of heights. Never preferred doing that. All my friends would do it. My older brother would do it and all. I would rarely do it. 5th grade, one of the few times I remember doing it, I get up there, and I'm with my next-door neighbor, Charlie, and we're out there, and I get the stick, and I pull it out, and I get on it, and I swing, and it's the greatest thing ever. And then I let go, and as I let go, it's still swinging on the bottom. And as I fall, it catches me, and like the rope comes this way around my arm, and it wraps around my arm. And then the knots somehow collect, and I just get hung like this. So I'm like 2 feet in the air, hung by this nylon rope around my arm right up here. And I remember sitting there, and I'm like, this is not good, this is not good. And Charlie's like, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? And I remember going, Charlie, go get someone. Go get my mom or go get your dad or something. Go get someone. So he runs off to get someone. As he's coming back in the yard, I remember the knots it came apart, and it unwound, and it ripped the whole back of my arm off, like right here, like ripped all the skin off. Big old chunk of skin came off, ripped into my arm. And I remember that. I remember going inside going, Mom. And my mom goes, okay, let's go into the bathroom. She takes me at the sink. She grabs a big bottle of hydrogen peroxide and goes, this is going to hurt. And I'm like, oh, crud. And she puts it over the sink and just pours it on there, and it just stings. And she takes gauze, slaps it on there, and tapes it all up. And she's like, okay, going back out. So we went back out. So we played. Well, like 3 days later, we have to take the galls off. But we left it on like 3 days. So the scab, if you know this stuff, had formed all into the galls, and it kind of become part of my arm. So I remember trying to get this thing off. And I still remember this day. I'm in the bathroom, and I'm in the sink, and I just had the water running on it, trying to peel it off little by little. And I'm like, oh, this hurts so bad. And my mom comes, and she's like, don't worry, just let me rip it off. It'll just hurt really quick. It'll be one thing. It won't take long. I'll just rip it off. I'm like, no. I'm like, I will take care of it, Mom. Don't worry about it. Now, this is the same woman. I know she attends here now because she moved down here. This is the same woman, like, you wouldn't tell her your tooth was loose because the minute she found out, she'd be, like, trying to hunt you down to pluck it out of your head. Okay? So I had this thing. I'm trying to get it off. My mom eventually gets tired of it. She walks in the bathroom. She goes, we're taking this thing off. I'm like, no. And she's like, yes. So she comes over. I remember she just grabs the edge of it, and she just rips it off. And it rips off all that skin again and all the scab, and it just bleeds all over. And she's like, this is going to hurt. We got to take hydrogen peroxide again. I'm like, we're right back to where we were 3 days ago. What did you do to me, lady? But I remember that process, and I remember kind of ripping that off. And the reason I tell you that is this. Today, we're going to kind of start the same approach with this workout, this spiritual workout, is we're going to rip the world off of us. We're just going to tear it off. Here's why. My thinking is this. Many of us have probably never really separated from the world since we actually became believers. What we did, if you're like me, is this. You probably just added this new life, this relationship with Jesus Christ to the life you already were living. You might have gotten rid of some sins that were obvious that you needed to ditch in your life and get rid of and kind of tear off and get rid of those. But simply what you did is you just added Christ amongst the rest of your life, and you still lived the same general lifestyle you did before you found him and you came into a relationship with him. You added Christ, but you never really tore everything down back to the basics and then rebuilt your life? Well, today, that's what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to start that planning process. I think for us to get spiritually healthy from time to time, it's very useful for us to just tear down everything in our life and kind of rebuild it, reset it, and just start rebuilding from scratch again, and then start adding things back in to see if we can build something more healthy. Let me read you what Paul says. Paul in chapter 5 of Ephesians, he says this, just read along on the screen. He says, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. Let there be no sexual immorality, impurity, or greed among you. Such sins have no place among God's people. Obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes, these are not for you. Instead, let there be thanksgiving to God. You can be sure that no immoral, impure, or greedy person will inherit the kingdom of Christ and of God. For a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. Don't be fooled by those who try to excuse these sins, for the anger of God will fall on all who disobey him. Don't participate in the things these people do. And get this, he says this, for once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. So live as people of light, for this light within you produces only what is good and right and true. And then he says, carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Okay? So Paul basically goes, you were once in the darkness, all of you were, but now you've come into the light with Jesus Christ. And he says, you need to be different. And he says, carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Look at your life. Determine the things in your life that are pleasing to God and the things that are not. Get rid of the things that are not and start doing the things that would be pleasing to him. So today we start what's called planning the cuts. Okay, we're going to start planning the cuts that we need to make in our lives to begin our workout and kind of reset our spiritual system is what we're going to be planning today. Now, there are two types of activities that we need to cut out of our lives. The first one is this, and it's an obvious one. These are the sins in your life. And I'm not going to go into detail with these. I'm going to leave these to you because you can figure those out. But the first thing you are going to have to work on this week in planning is looking at your life and going, what things are obvious sins in your life that you are even aware of sitting here today that are sinful things in your life that you need to cut out in order to start this workout, that you need to just get rid of and go, I'm going to set those aside. Paul says it like this. Paul talks to this young guy as kind of like an apprentice of his named Timothy. And he sends Timothy to this new church work and kind of to organize this thing and be the leader there. And he tells him all these sins that people are doing and everything. And then he says this at the end. He says, but you, Timothy, are a man of God. So run from all these evil things. So Paul says, you see these people doing all these sinful things, but Timothy, you are a man of God. Run from that stuff. Get as far away from that stuff as you can. And the same thing can be said to us. You can look at us and go, Dwight, you are a man of God. Run from those evil things. He's speaking it to us. You can look at Paula and go, Paula, you are a woman of God. Remove these evil things. Run from them in your life. The reason you need to cut these is Paul says, if you want to get spiritually healthy, you've got to get the sin out. You've got to remove those things. So the things you are aware of right now, remove them. And I'm going to leave that up to you because I'm not looking here to tell you what all of them are because I don't know you that well. And I don't need you to tell me all of your sins because really I don't want to know you that well. So we kind of have a mutual thing. Carrie, I already know yours, so don't be disappointed by that. We are, but I'm not going to share those today. But anyway, so that one I'm going to leave to you. Here's the second thing we need to cut that gets a little bit harder, and it is this. We need to cut the neutral fillers in our lives. Let me tell you what that means, neutral fillers. There's a lot of things in our lives that are not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily sinful. They're not necessarily things you can look at and go, oh, that's just horrible, you shouldn't be doing it. They are fillers. They are things in our free time that we fill our free time up with that just occupy the rest of the time in our lives. And what it usually does is this, it crowds God out of our lives. One of the reasons most Christians don't read their Bibles, they don't pray a whole lot, They don't do several of those stats I gave you is this. They go, I don't have time. I have so many filler things in there. I don't have free time. I just think about, going to do stuff with the Lord. So I'm just getting through my daily work with all my different things I got and all the different tasks I have, and I'm watching TV and I'm watching movies. I'm doing this, listening to music and all these things. And I don't have time for God to really plug in there because I feel pretty overwhelmed already, and every minute of my day is occupied with something. What we're going to do is we need to cut it all out, go cold turkey. And then what we're going to do down the road here is go, what healthy things do we first put in our lives that are top priority? Then maybe you use this filler stuff around the healthy stuff that you've put back in your life. Does that make sense? So today we're going to talk about really the neutral filler stuff. Here's what Paul says, 1 Corinthians. He says, you say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. Paul basically says, as a Christian, you say you can do anything. Yeah, you can. That's up to you. But not everything is beneficial to you. You say you can do anything. Yeah, you know what? You can, but not everything's good for you. It's not always the best thing for you in your life right there. Yeah, you can do it. Doesn't mean it's great. So he's not going, it's all bad, but this filler stuff we got to get rid of. Paul addresses both of these issues in Hebrews 12:1. He says this, therefore, since you are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, listen to the two things he talks about. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down. The filler stuff. Let us strip it off. And then he says, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. Then he talks about the sin. Let's remove these things from our lives and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. So he says, strip these two things off so you can run the race God has set before you well. That's why we're starting the workout. So this morning, does anyone not have a program? We tried to get this in everyone's hands today that's sitting in this room. Does everyone have one? If you don't, raise your hand, and Jim's got one back there because these are key. Heather, since you work here, I'll get you one. Oh, bring one up to Heather, Jim. Oh, wait, Zeke didn't get one either. Okay. And I gave Christina one. All right, I'll wait for you to get to Heather now. She has an excuse because she's working while she's here and doing all her stuff. Okay, if you need one, Jim will bring those around. Here's what I want you to need you to do. Get these out, get them in your hands. This is this week what we're going to be doing. This is your challenge for the week. You are not going cold turkey this week. What you are going to do is this. You're going to evaluate your life this week, and you're going to start making your plan of what you need to cut out when we start next week going cold turkey for a week. So let me kind of just walk you through this to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. On here, what you need to do is circle the things that you're going to commit to for your week of cold turkey that you're just going to cut out. It's just going to go away for a week, for 7 days. It's going to start next Sunday to the following Sunday that you're going to cut out for 7 days. Here are your options and the things I consider were probably the number one time spenders, neutral filler things we had in our lives. The first thing is the internet. How many of you waste a ton of time on the internet? Okay, that's a good half of the church. Waste a ton of time. Here are the different options. Not everything on the internet's bad. Not everything's totally filler. Some things might be beneficial for you. I don't know what you do, so I give you several options. You might choose all of them. But on the internet, you could cut out your news websites. If you read news like I do, where you read probably 2.5 hours a day, just news stories, that's what I usually read. I don't read fiction or anything like that. I just read news and stories on the internet. So you can cut out news sites. You can cut out sports sites. So if you have ESPN or fantasy football, if you're in the fantasy football league with me, you might want to set your lineup. You'd have to log on once, but we'll leave it at that. Set your lineup that week and leave it there. But sports websites, get rid of them. Social media sites, that would be like your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, and those types of things that you might use. For a week, you cut out all use of it. You just get rid of them. YouTube, if you spend time, which is mostly going to be our teenagers, okay? Our teenagers and kids using YouTube and stuff, cutting YouTube out for a week, just getting rid of it. You can either do the entire internet or you can do sections of the internet, okay? The next thing, TV and movies. Last week's stats, we learned outside of eating and drinking, the most common activity that the American public has together is watching movies and watching TV, all right? So your next option is this, cut it out. Remove the TV and movies for an entire week. Now, if you don't want to get rid of all of it, you have your options. News, sports, Is there any big games next? Wait, we're talking next Sunday, so it'd be NFL day. NFL next week. Yeah, okay, see, when you do the Atkins and you cut out carbs, it's tough. When we start next Sunday, depending on what you pick, it's going to be tough. I will pledge to you here, I will cut out NFL and I will cut out college football for a week. Now, for college football, Michigan stinks right now, so it's not really that much of a sacrifice, so I'm kind of glad on that one. But I don't get to watch my Lions next week, so that could be bad. So NFL, sports sites, stuff like that. Oh, and I got playoffs coming for baseball too. Okay, this is going to be tough. All right, Netflix and movies. How many of you watch them on a regular week? Okay, that's an option. Cut that out. Or just general entertainment. That would be your sitcoms, things like that. Just cut the TV off. The other option, cell phones. You can get rid of social media. Texting other than work, because some of our jobs require it, so you have to. But outside of specific work stuff, cut the phone off for texting. Or gaming, if you do games on your phones, cut those off and go, I'm going to cut those for a week. This is another one, video games, if you play video games. So if you play Madden like I do on a weekly basis, you need to get rid of Madden and cut that out, or cut the Xbox or PlayStation or whatever it is, cut that out for a week. Here's some others that I'm not as used to. Shopping. I know some of you women here, it's just a delightful thing you like doing is, I got free time, I'm going to the store and I just want to look around. You might not even be buying stuff, you just like to go look around. That might be something you need to go, that's a filler I need to cut out for a week. I'm just not going to go shopping at all for a week. Got me, Francis? Okay. And baby woman over here. The other one, reading. Maybe you're an avid reader. Here would be my suggestion. Even if you read Christian authors, I'm asking you to cut them for a week. Cut them for a week. Christian authors are great, but understand they're still just guys writing Christian books, and they're not always completely great and wonderful as we think they are at times. So I'd even suggest that. The only author I would tell you to read right now is if you want to read the Bible that was inspired by God, you can go for that, all right? But just Christian books or any other type of books, if you're a fiction reader, whatever it is you're reading, you might cut that for a week. Crafting, as Heather gave me. So are any of you crafty that do crafty stuff every week? Oh, there are some of you. Okay. So oh yes, I have you on Facebook, Amanda. Okay, you crafty people, you fill a lot of your time with crafts. I would ask you, maybe that's something you go, that's one of the items I'm cutting off for the week and I'm going to cut off. Exercise. If you're an avid exerciser and you spend a lot of time exercising for a week, I know this goes contrary to everything else the world tells you. Stop exercising for a week. Cut it out. Stop filling your time with the exercise. Last couple, non-Christian music. If you listen to a ton of music and just sit there listening to music, I would ask you, cut it for a week. Music, here's what's odd. Music's a thing you can do in the background and do other things. I want this first week to hurt. Okay? You know when you start working out, if you do weights or if you run or whatever, you know like the first 2 days after doing it, I know this from that, you start lifting weights and then like your kid comes up and grabs you from behind and he grabs like right here and you're like, get off me, that hurts so bad because it hurts. I want you to hurt the first week. Let me tell you why real quick. I want you to remember this experience for a long time. I want you to point back to it and remember this is where I kind of cut out a bunch of stuff in my life to make God a priority again in my life. So I want it to hurt. I don't want you to go on easy streak. I want you to do cuts here that you go, this is going to be odd for a week and it's going to be rather rough because it's going to take me out of my norm in a large way, all right? Last one is this, extracurricular activities, which means I don't know what other things you do, so whatever they might be. And if you have those and you come to what those are during the week, write them on the empty spots and write those, and those will be a commitment you have. What I need you to do with this, you need to do this week. You need to bring it back with you next week because this needs to be with you because we're going to talk about getting this started and how we succeed at this next week. But next Sunday, we will start whatever choices you make for your week of cuts. Next Sunday, we will start and we will go a full week of cutting those things out of our life and go cold turkey, rip the Band-Aid off and rip the world out of us to get a feel for what it's like to go, wow, I actually do have some time to put God back in my life. I can make him a priority again because I got a lot of stuff that's just filler. Does that make sense? Everybody got that? Okay, we start that next Sunday. Let me close with this. The reason we're doing this whole 6-week series, I want you to know what it feels like to be spiritually healthy. If you've ever been there before, you know what it feels like, and it's something the world can never give you. When you know you are in sync with God and His will in your life and you're doing His work, it's an incredible experience in your life, and I want you to put yourself in the best environment that you can to have that and experience that in your life again. One of the things Paul says in 2 Timothy, later to Timothy, he says this in chapter 2. It's very interesting. He says, if you keep yourself pure, you will be a special utensil for honorable use. Your life will be clean, and you will be ready for the master to use you for every good work. Here's what I can guarantee you. If you can get yourself in spiritual shape, I guarantee you God will use you. God will not sit there and go, oh, you're in good spiritual shape right now. I don't have anything for you to do. Okay? I guarantee you God will give you things to do. God will speak to you, and you will realize there's a purpose for your life that outweighs anything this world offers you that will accomplish eternal things. And Paul says here, if you can clean things up, if you can get that, the master will use you for special works. The master will use you for special things to do for his kingdom. And I want you to start experiencing that again in your life. I do not want you the typical American place we have gone when we're unhealthy, which is this. We just live through a routine. And we do the same things week in, week out. And God feels like He's close, but He's kind of there, and I'm just doing my thing here, and I just kind of go through the motions. I want you to experience what it feels like to be healthy, running the race for Jesus Christ, and know that victory is ahead of you. That's what we're looking to achieve through the 6 weeks. Would you pray with me?